Queerpypasta. Spooks from the LGBT community.
Am I in the wrong for standing up to my mum? Written by Captain Raffyoli. Narrated by Rosalind, Saville and Queerpy Tasha. I know most people would probably say that I'm in the right, but I still feel a bit guilty because of what happened. Also, my apologies if this is a bit long. A little backstory. My mum was really protective of me as a kid. I'm talking, you can't watch TV past 8 PM or it will fry your brains, protective. Or, you can't go to your friend's house because I don't know their parents, protective. Or even, no leaving your room past midnight even if you really need to go to the bathroom, protective. Basically, she had a lot of weirdly specific rules that I had to follow to a T. As a kid, I was miserable, but never really questioned it. Looking back, my childhood sucked. She was very loving most of the times though. She was always making me snacks, never asking me to do chores, always tucked me in for bed, etc. Every time I broke a rule, she would freak out on me, throwing plates around, shouting curses, thrashing about, whatever. But no matter how bad it was, she would eventually calm down and wipe the tears from my eyes and the slime from my face, telling me that all the rules were meant to protect me. It was a complicated relationship, to say the least. The main problem of this post started when I began college last year. I went to a nearby community college and met this guy named Blaine, and we really hit it off. He's sweet and really considerate, but he was having a hard time at home because of his homophobic parents. Between a closeted gay man and a bisexual man with a rule book for a mother, our relationship was difficult, but we made it work. My mum had a vague idea that I was in a relationship, even if I never told her outright. I'd come home, before my 6 PM curfew, always, with a big dumb smile on my face, and she'd ask me how my day was with that knowing look. I'd usually tell her that I went out with friends, or that I just did some work in the library, but deep down, I think she knew. Things went wrong when my boyfriend's parents found out about our relationship. They freaked the fuck out and kicked him out of the house. He had nowhere else to go. All of his other friends either had strict parents or lived in the college dorm that wouldn't let non-dormers in anyway. So he turned to me. At that point, I didn't care about the rules. I just wanted to help the man I loved out of a shitty situation. I texted him, telling him to sneak into my room later that evening when I knew my mum would lock herself up in her room in the basement. I made sure to tell him not to make a sound and to only tap the glass on my window. He arrived at my house at around 7:42 PM, so I turned up the volume on the TV to mask his coming through my bedroom window. I got him settled in and read to him my mother's list of rules.
Wow.
He said, skimming over the rules one more time.
I thought you were exaggerating when you said your mum was a control freak.
I rolled my eyes. You know I'd never lie about the rules. I sat back down on my bed. Anyway, under no circumstances can you leave my room, especially after midnight. My mum will freak out. He shrugged.
Can't be any worse than my own parents.
I looked at him sadly and shook my head. Just please promise me you won't break any more rules. He nodded. By 8, I turned off the TV and ate my dinner with my mum. We sat across the table from each other, talking about school while I ate my chicken wings, while she sucked down the leftover bones. I maintained a perfect facade, a skill you learn when you grow up with an overly controlling parent, and she was none the wiser of the extra occupants in my room. After dinner, I took some leftovers in a bag and snuck them into my room, breaking yet another rule. All leftovers go into Mum's bin to take to the basement. My boyfriend ate dinner while we watched Netflix on my laptop together before going to bed. At around 2 in the morning, I was awakened by Blaine tapping me on the shoulder.
I need to pee.
Go in the morning.
But I really need to pee.
I looked around the room with sleepy eyes. Go in that empty water bottle. He groaned, and I fell back asleep. Next thing I knew, I heard a loud noise in the hallway, followed by his screams. I bolted up and out of my room and found my mum with one tendril hanging around his neck and another around his foot.
Jeremy, what did I say about guests in the house?
She hissed, spitting black goo from her mouth. Blaine didn't stop screaming. Mum, he's my boyfriend. His parents kicked him out yesterday. One of her eyes looked at me, her expression softening slightly.
So, this is the boy.
Her grip on his neck loosened slightly as she looked him up and down with her other eyes.
Jeremy, what the fuck?
He shouted, tears spilling from his eyes. My mum focused on him again, turning all 5 of her eyes on him.
Language, young man.
She unhinged her jaw and swallowed his foot, making a loud crunching noise. He turned pale as a sheet and screamed even louder. Mum! His entire calf disappeared into the inky black void that was her body, and she crunched along like it was nothing. Mum! Stop! I screamed at her until my throat went hoarse. He passed out and slumped over, and my mum made a slurping noise as she relinquished her jaws from his leg. His calf was just gone. All that was left was a slow bleeding stump below his knee.
Jeremiah Lazuna, you know we have rules in this household,
She said, her voice growing louder. Her grip on his neck visibly tightened. Mum, you're going to kill him! She made a low, guttural noise that seemed to come from everywhere.
Rules.
Without thinking, I grabbed a nearby vase and smashed it over her head. She screamed, releasing her grip on Blaine. He fell to the ground like a wet paper towel.
Jeremiah, how dare you?
I ran to the kitchen, hoping she would keep her attention on me. Thankfully she did, running across the walls and slinking into the kitchen and blocking the entrance with her hulking form. I grabbed a meat cleaver from the knife block and brought it down upon her chest. She screamed, and with every scream I brought the knife back down upon her form. Her tendrils would wrap around my limbs, trying to stop me. You tried to eat my boyfriend! I shouted with every strike. Because of rules! I'm sick of it! I'm not going to lie, that moment felt cathartic. Every blow took a weight off my shoulders, until she was nothing but a tar-like puddle, eyeballs and kitchen tile shards. It felt freeing. As soon as I knew she wasn't getting back up, I rushed back to Blaine. Thankfully my mum licked his wound clean, so he was bleeding very slowly. I managed to get my first aid kit from the bathroom and bandaged his wound before taking him to the hospital in my dad's old car. Neither Blaine nor I could explain what happened to him to the hospital staff, but thankfully we were able to contact his older sister in the next city, and she was able to help us. We're currently staying with her in her apartment. It's been a couple of weeks since all this happened. Things are still pretty good with me and Blaine, and he's recovering quickly. His sister is also really nice, and let me go back to my mum's house to collect my stuff. So yeah, long story short, my controlling mum tried to eat my boyfriend and I cleaved her to death. Am I in the wrong for this?
Queerpypasta. Spooks from the LGBT community.